Hello, everyone, and welcome to Africa Fire Mission's weekly virtual training session. My name is Mike, and I'm the programs director here at Africa Fire Mission, and we're so happy that you took time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's training. Today, we're joined by Jeff Jacobs. He's a firefighter captain out in California. He's one of our volunteer trainers and an all-around great guy. He's here again to share some of his knowledge with us today. We're going to be talking about company drills and training, which is always a great topic when we train about training. Before we get started here, just a couple of administrative notes. If you stick around for at least 70% of today's training, I can get you a certificate of attendance for today's training. It's usually about 40 or 45 minutes that you have to be here. If you get cut off or you can't complete the training for some reason, encourage you to go to our website at www.africafiremission.org. Click on that resources tab, and there's some training materials there. You'll find a link where you can get to our Google Drive, where we have a recording of today's training as well as all the rest of the trainings that we've done already this year. If you watch the recording, answer a few questions about what you learned, I can get you a certificate of attendance for that training as well. When we get finished at the top of the hour, we'll transition into our tea time, which is a time that you can network with other firefighters, ask questions about today's topic, or talk about anything else that may be on your mind. So I encourage you, if you have the time, to stick around for that as well. At this point in time, I'm going to pass things over to Jeff to get us started with today's topic. Take it away, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Well, good morning for me. Good evening to all of you. Thank you so much to be here. As always, I'm very honored that you would take your time out of your day, get on the internet, and come listen to me talk. That's very humbling for me, and I'm incredibly grateful for everyone to be here. So today we're talking about fire company drills, which is awesome. It's one of my favorite topics. I love teaching. I love being an instructor. It's how I got hooked up with AFM in my organization. I teach in our fire academy, in line service training, things like that. Actually, today, in about 3 hours, we're heading down to the tower to teach forcible entry. So I love it. In my state, the state of California, the state fire marshal is the one that regulates training, and I recently became a master instructor. So it sounds fancy. All it means is I teach other instructors how to be instructors. And that's what we're going to kind of focus on today. Is we're going to talk about how you guys can be an instructor for your fire or for your engine companies, truck companies, rescue companies, and how you can set yourself up to be successful for training inside your own organizations. So we're not gonna go fast, but I want to leave enough time at the end where we can go over common fire company drills, kind of give you some ideas, maybe get that blood flowing in that part of your brain of like, ooh, that would be good to train on. So also questions. I love questions. Please do not think you're going to interrupt me. Throw it in the chat. I have the chat up as well, so I'm looking at that. Mike's looking at the chat. Please throw out questions at the end. I know we have tea time and we'll have plenty of time for questions as well. So if we miss it, we're going to go back and we're going to find it. So the more participation from you guys, the better learning you're going to get out of this. And the more I can tailor all the things that I say to fit you. So, all right, let's see. Screen share.
Let us know if you have a question during the training with the hand raise or in the chat, and then we'll set things up so that you can unmute if you've got a question.
Hey, Mike, am I able to screen share?
Oh, hold on. My bad. Give me a
No
second.
problem.
That's what happens when you give me a week or two off. There you go.
All right, let's see. Share. Boom, here we go. All right, let's do that. All right, here we go. All right.
All good.
Like I said, we're gonna go over fire company drills. I think fire company drills, in my opinion, are the cornerstone of training in the fire service. The academies are great. Formal instruction from your organization is great, but fire company drills with your team, with your equipment, training on your buildings and the types of calls that you're seeing is going to make the biggest difference between success and failure in the fire service. I advocate for training daily. I advocate in my organization that every company on duty trains for at least 2 hours a day. Even if you're senior, all of my guys, we have 15 plus years with our organization. We still train for two hours a day. We got to keep those things going. We'll go into why we do that. All right, so overview, what today's going to look like. We're going to go over what a company drill is, how to decide what to train on, how to develop a learning objective, which you'll see in parentheses there, incident objectives. The reason for that is we need to think of learning objectives as incident objectives, right? When we get on scene, we have incident objectives. Well, in training, we have learning objectives. Same thing, just different words. We're going to develop a lesson plan, which again, at an incident, it's just your incident action plan. Here's how we're going to fight this fire. Here's how we're going to deal with this emergency. Same thing for a lesson plan with teaching. Here's how we're going to teach. Here's how we're going to do our learning objective. Go from there, go into the 4-step method of instructions. Talk about some learning theory. I have a lot of slides on learning theory. We're going to brush a couple of them, but I don't want to spend too much time hitting too much of it. We'll go and why some of the theory is important, why some of it's not. And then again, get into that common fire company drills. 1 second, let me just arrange my, stand by. There we go. Okay. So what is a company drill? Company drill is that training that you do on duty. It is task or topic specific, as in today we're going to train on advancing a hand line. Today we're going to train on SCBA failures or malfunctions. It is task or topic specific. So today in a couple hours, we're going to go train on forcible entry on an inward swinging door, right? It's based on job performance requirements, JPRs. We have to find something to tailor our training to. We can't just go out and train randomly. We need to figure out what part of our job do we need to go train on. And we're going to get into doing needs assessments. It's normally conducted on duty with normal staffing. That part's important, with normal staffing. So whatever realistically you're going to get on this emergency is what you should be using to train with, right? If we're going to go train on, a single family house fire, we can't pretend we have 20 rigs there when we would only have 4. You have to make it somewhat realistic with normal staffing. And also part of that normal staffing is with the guys that you work with. I think some of you have pretty consistent staffing of like, hey, I always work with these 5 or 6 guys. Every time I'm on duty, they're on duty. Some of you, it rotates a little bit. But for the most part, the people that you'd normally be working with are the ones you should be training with. And that's so you guys have shared experiences. My 2 guys that I work with on my company, they're Eric and Dave. I have been working and training with Eric and Dave so much that I know what they're thinking. I know what they're expecting, and we can start to flow in this incident because we've trained together so much. And that's what a lot of this is getting normal with your normal staffing guys. Training segments, usually 2 hours or less, can be more, can be less, but typically around that 2-hour mark. And it can be formal or it can be informal, right? Majority of it's going to be informal. We kind of go out, we've done some formal stuff. Maybe we did our needs assessment, figure out what we need to train on. We go out and just talk about it, go do some stuff, play with it. That's more common than the formal. Formal is, we have the training division out there, the training department out there. We're going to have a formal test at the end. It's going to go in our record of we did this training, all that stuff, not as common. Typically the informal, it's done by a member of the crew who has a specific topic that they've researched or they feel comfortable teaching on. we'll still do an evaluation, but it's not typically graded. But how do we know what to train on? Great question. A needs assessment. At some point, you're going to need to do a needs assessment for each level of your organization. And this could be, again, this can be formal and informal, right? We can have this written down, we can have an amazing document, or it could just be sitting around the dinner table talking about it. You know, what are some needs at the company level? What are some needs at the individual level? What are some needs at the battalion level? You know, the division level, if you have them, at the department level. All right. There's many ways to do a needs assessment. But there's no like industrial best standards. Something that I use pretty often is the SWOT up there in the upper right corner: strength, weaknesses, opportunities. Oops, sorry, I'm having a little malfunction thing here. There we go. Strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. That's the one I like to use because it works in my brain better. Like strengths are what am I good at? What's my company good at? I know my three guys, we're really good at hose drills because we do them. But we have weaknesses. Our weakness is ropes, like ropes and knots, technical rescue, hazmat stuff. Those are our weaknesses. Our opportunities. What opportunities do we have to train? Well, my station has a small pickup truck here for wireline. Hey, that's a great opportunity to get out there and train. Or my department does EMS updates every year. That's a great opportunity to go and advance our EMS knowledge by volunteering to help with those EMS updates. And then threats. What threats do we have in our community, in my city, that we're not ready for, right? What threats do we have there? Well, in my community, we're building a lot of high density apartments, which means they're really tiny apartments and there's hundreds of them in a really small area. That's a huge threat for us. We need to be training to overcome some of those threats, some of those hazards, right? So it's a common one that we use. There are other ones out there. But pretty much what you're trying to do is, what are the hazards? How are we going to overcome those hazards? What training do we need to overcome all of that? So when we do them, we want to base them off JPRs, which again are the job performance related tasks. Policies, if your department has internal policies, and industrial best practice, which you could find through the AFM network or through searches, things like that. Some examples. My organization a while ago, a couple of years ago, they did surveys. Every year they would do a survey. They send a survey out to all the line folks and say, what do we need to train on? What training do you want to see? What do you feel we're weak on? That we're strong on? What threats do you see? And then they'd collect it from everyone. They would make a sheet and send it out. So I'm not saying you have to do that, but talk with other people, see what ideas they have. Another thing to kind of figure out what we need to train on: risk versus time training tool. This has other names. I like the risk versus time because it makes sense in my brain. All right. So what we're looking at here, right, are 4 squares. That's just it's a grid. It's a matrix, right? So on one axis, on one side, we have our risk. We have low risk going to high risk. On that top side, that top axis, we have a lot of time going to no time at all. And then we just have where these intersect, right? So if we have low risk and a lot of time, that task is not an issue, right? Some tasks that would fall inside this square here are things like personal issues, maintenance issues, public service requests. Someone's cat's in a tree, right? There's really no risk to us, and we have a lot of time to figure this out. We don't need to do a lot of training in this one, right? Because we have time to look at policies. We have time to ask friends, like subject matter experts. We can use the 5-step problem solving process. Not a lot of training required in this category, right? Now, if we look at high risk, but a lot of time, it's kind of the same thing. However, we do need some training in it, right? Because this lot of time high risk. Now you're starting looking at checklists, department standard operating procedures, subject matter experts, and risk to our life and the public. So there's a high risk, but we have a lot of time to figure it out. We need some awareness level training, maybe some operational level training, but we don't need those red line type, that muscle memory, that second nature training, because we have time to look it up. These type of calls down here in this high risk, lots of time, those are your hazmat calls, your tech rescue calls, your multi-day wildland fire calls. So in this quadrant here, checklists are big. I'm a big fan of checklists. I think we use them inappropriately in the fire service. I think aviation and the medical field use them correctly. In the fire service, we're still trying to figure them out. We're using checklists when we should be using our brain, and then using our brain when we should be using checklists. So going up to the top right corner here, low risk, little time. These are kind of your, trying to think of a good call. Your vehicle accidents where no one's really hurt, or your personnel service calls, your like HR stuff where someone's like fighting, or there's a major issue in the station. Low risk, our lives aren't at risk, but we need to have certain things on deck. We need to have certain muscle memory items on deck of like, I know how to fill out an incident form. I know how to do some leadership stuff. So, but no one's life's at risk. So not a lot of big training in here, not a lot of big training in here in those two, but still some training. A lot of our training, especially for fire company, is going to be in this quadrant here, right? We have a high risk to life and we have little time to figure it out. That's where the majority of our training should be. This is structure fires, rescues, commercial fires, high risk EMS calls, high risk vehicle accidents, things where we need to make decisions right now that are going to have an impact on people's lives between 10 seconds from now to the rest of their lives. I mentioned earlier that I think the aviation and medical community checklist, right? I was, before the fire service, I was in the Army. I was a medic on a helicopter. So I was in the aviation community. And that's kind of where I learned checklists. Pilots use checklists the correct way. When you look at a checklist for a pilot in an emergency, the first 3 lines are red and they're underlined. Those 3 steps, the pilots have to know verbatim in their mind, and they have to accomplish them immediately. Everything past that, it's just normal black typing, 12 font, everything. That's for the crew, the co-pilot to pull it out and start going it down. Same thing for a structure fire. When we get on scene, those first 5 things should be red and underlined. We need to do them without thinking. They need to be done. I need to get a size up over the radio. I need to get my guys with a handline to the front door. I need to do a risk assessment, and we need to start taking water in, smoke out, and finding people. After all of that, pull out a checklist. Oh, I need to call the city. I need to call the utility company. I need to start worrying about overhaul and salvage. All those things that are important, but they're not immediate. Those red light items are our training opportunities. Those are what we need to be working on. So we figured out what we want to train on. Now we need to write our learning objectives. Again, think of these as our incident objectives on a call. In the training environment, they're called learning objectives. A mnemonic that we teach and that we use for the learning environment is the ABCD method. I'm not saying you have to use this method. I'm saying it makes it nice. It helps you format your learning objectives, right? So the ABCD method, A is audience. Who am I writing this for, and what level of professionalism, right? So later today, my company's going down to the academy. My audience are fire recruits. They are on the lower level of profession in their profession, right? They're just entering the fire service and there's 12 of them. So that's my audience, right? Fire recruit. It could be, hey, my engine company or the individual firefighter, or hey, my battalion, trying to identify what my audience is. B is for behavior. That's what I want them to do, right? That's the task I want them to perform, or the topic I want them to discuss. That's the meat and potatoes, right? So that could be, I want them to advance a 2.5-inch line. I want them to be able to ventilate a residential window. I want them to be able to extricate a victim. That's what I want them to do. C is conditions. Conditions is what parameters, what environments do I want them to do that behavior under, right? So the condition or the behavior might be, I want them to advance a hand line into a house. Well, the condition is in full PPE while wearing an SCBA with no visibility. We're going to tape their mask up. All right. It's the environment that they're going to do it in. D is degree. This is how we're going to evaluate them and we're going to judge them, right? So for a task, it might be a time standard and an error standard, right? This advancing the hose line, they need to do it within 2 minutes of getting off the fire engine. And they can only miss 3 of the 12 steps I have in my lesson plan. If it's a topic, they need to be able to, do a written test and get a 80% on the test. The degree is what error factor they're allowed to do it in. So who am I writing this for? What do I expect them to do? How do I expect them to perform it? Like in what conditions, what environment, and to what degree of acceptable error, right? Typically, this is written in an ACBD method. It's just easier for us to remember ABCD method. So I had, and it's not coming up. I don't know how to look at notes on here. Let's see if I can. So this is the a learning objective a couple days ago was a student given a self-contained breathing apparatus and structural personal protection equipment will be able to put on SCBA within 60 seconds or less, wear, operate, and doff SCBA in accordance with the manufacturer guidelines, and inspect, maintain, and return the SCBA to a ready state in a non-emergency setting. That's a learning objective. That's from the state of California. So it's worded kind of weird because, it's written by the government, but that is a learning objective. There's a lot there, right? But we can identify who's the audience, a student. Behavior. Well, we want them to don within 60 seconds, use an emergency setting, and inspect, maintain, and return the SCBA to a ready state. That's my behavior. Conditions. In a non-emergency setting. So non-rush setting. The degree per manufacturer's guidelines, right? So there's our ABCD method. All right, let me get this back up to normal. There we go. All right, learning objectives. This can get kind of deep, but don't worry too much about it. We have terminal learning objectives and enabling learning objectives. Terminal learning objectives, those are the big ones, right? Those are multi-day. This is like our monthly plan or our annual plan of training, right? It's big picture. Usually involves multiple days of training. An example would be at the end of this topic, a student given various hand tools, power tools, will be able to safely transport, operate, and maintain them in accordance with manufacturer specification and AHJ policies and procedures. There's a lot there to train on, right? Because we have to do all the hand tools and all the power tools. We're not going to hit this in one day. We're going to have to do multiple days of hand tools, multiple days of power tools to reach this terminal learning objectives, big picture. An enabling learning objective accomplishes the terminal learning objectives. So the enabling learning objectives are those broken down, right? So this is the individual training segments. These are these 2-hour segments, right? And they support the terminal learning objective. So it could be identify basic construction tools and equipment, hammer, saws, pliers, things like that. 2, it could be identifying basic mechanic tools and equipment, screwdrivers, wrenches, sockets, etc. 3, it could be describe types and uses of hand tools, prying tools, striking tools, push-pulling tools, and cutting tools. Those will all meet the terminal learning objectives. So by the time we've knocked out all of our enabling learning objectives, we've hit our terminal learning objectives. So for you guys, terminal learning objectives, usually written by company officers, battalion chiefs, division chiefs, things like that. On the company level and below, we're going to start writing our enabling learning objectives. Some additional considerations. Before we start writing our lesson plan, we have we've developed our learning objectives. Maybe we put them in the terminal learning objectives, enabling man, that's hard to say after a while. Enabling learning objectives. Maybe we split them up, maybe we didn't. We need to consider other things before we start writing our plan, right? Some of those considerations. What resources do I have to teach? Do I have a whiteboard? Do I have the big sheets of paper? Is it just us with little figurines? What physical resources do we have? What rigs do we have available? What hose do we have available? What PPE do we have available? What time do we have available? Notifications. Let people know you're training. If I'm going to take my guys to go do training, I'm telling the 2 closest stations to me that we're going to go out training, and I'm going to let my boss know, hey, we're going to go out training. It just keeps people in the know, makes people feel more comfortable, and it kind of gets them motivated to go train. If I'm going to go train, like, hey, we're going to go pull some hose, and I call my neighbor station, like, hey, we're going to go train for 2 hours, we're going to go pull hose. It makes them think like, oh, man, they're going to go train. Man, we haven't trained in like a week. We should probably go train too. So not only do we get that snowball effect, it just lets people know where you are, what you're doing, kind of completes that loop. Weather precautions and a backup plan. In California, we have wild weather swings. Today, it's supposed to be like 47 degrees outside. It's 37 degrees outside right now. So it's cold. But in the summertime, we could have 110, 115 degrees Fahrenheit. So having those weather precautions and those backup plans. I'm not going to make my guys go train in 115 degree heat. My backup plan is we're going to go sit down at the coffee table and we're just going to discuss things. Maybe it's a different topic, maybe the same topic, but the weather gets to say as well. Big thing, safety needs. Every lesson plan should have a safety section, a safety needs section, right? Some things we want to think about: student health, a rehab. If it's too hot, too cold, we're doing something physical, we need to have a rehab. A safety officer. If what we're training on has a high risk, a medium to high risk, we should have a designated safety officer. I'm the burn boss for our organization, so I do all the live fire training. Every time we light a training fire, we have a minimum of 2 safety officers, one on the outside, one on the inside. Same thing for technical rescue. Our technical rescue guys, every time they train on ropes that has a person on the ropes, they have 2 safety officers, a scene and a technical. So have those safety officers out there to get that big picture and focus on, are we doing things safely? Belay systems and backup systems, again, if we're doing something risky, we need to have extra precautions in there. We should not be risking our lives in training. We may take risk on for an emergency, right? I'm going to accept a lot of risks to go in there, get someone out of a burning building. In training, we should not be accepting that risk. There should be safety factors in there to where we can go in and be comfortable making mistakes in that risk environment. Because I know my buddies are there to back me up, protect me if I make that mistake. Rick, you guys might call it something else, that rapid intervention crew. You guys may call it something else. I've heard Rick, backup. There's an engine one, engine. I don't know. There's a couple different things. Having that backup crew just for us, and then public perimeters. We gotta be safe with the public. So setting up that perimeter, make sure that they can't get into our area, keeping them safe. Lesson plans. Developing a lesson plan. No formal way, right? One that I use pretty frequently. Again, since I was in the Army, it's one that we use. So it's the situation, mission, execution, service and support, and communications. SMESC. The little mnemonic is Sergeant Majors eat sugar cookies. Sergeant Major is a rank in, I think, most militaries. I think it's pretty big in the British military. But Sergeant Majors eat sugar cookies. Situation, mission, execution, service and support, communication. So situation, here's why we're training on this. Our mission, here's our focus. Execution, here's how we're going to do it. Support services, here's the support we're doing on the backside, which includes our safety plan, and the communications, if you have a radio or whatever. It could be time task, at 9 o'clock, we're doing this, at 9:10, we're doing this, 9:15, we're doing this. Here's how we're breaking it down. It could be a step-by-step fashion, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It could be simple to complex, like a crawl, walk, run, or these are rungs on a ladder. This is beams on a ladder. And now complex, here's how we raise the ladder. Or crawl, walk, run fashion, like we talked about. There's no formal way a lesson plan should be developed. It should just be comprehensive, make sense to us, so we can produce a good training environment, good training flow. Again, there's all types. This is more of a formal one. These are ICS forms. This is more of when I'm conducting a live fire burn. I want things more formal. Or they could just be this. This was a fire academy a long time ago. This is broken down into time. At 1330 to 1700, we're going to do rotations, 1 hour rotations. Station 4 is hose. Station 5 is a stairwell. Station 6 is rope. So we've developed our learning objectives. We've considered additional considerations. We've written our lesson plan. We've gathered all of the materials. We've gathered all of our training resources into one place. And now it's time for us to present. 4-step method of instruction. Step 1, preparation. This is kind of confusing. I hate that word preparation. I wish they used something different. This is not, it's preparing this. What it is preparing the student to learn. It's not me preparing to teach. It's preparing the student to learn. It's the hook. It's that motivation step. It's the why. Why are we here training? Adult learning theory says adults have to be motivated to learn for them to actually retain anything. So if we're not motivated to learn, if we don't have that hook, I'm not paying attention. So this is your opportunity as the instructor. Get in there, nail that why. Get that motivation step, right? So today we're going to go do forcible entry. That first step, that preparation step, is going to be a story of how we got to a fire. We got the line down. We couldn't get the door open. We opened up the door and there was a victim right there. That's a hook. Like, wow, this is important. There are victims inside. There's a ton of ways to do that. This is your time to kind of hoorah, get them pumped up, get them ready to learn. Step 2, presentation. This is the main portion for the instructor to teach. This is the talking, the PowerPoint, the performing the step-by-step as the instructor. This is the bulk of me teaching the students. And however way I do that, that's that main bulk. It allows the students to ask questions, to see the material, to start developing their perceptions, their paradigm of it. But it's focused on the instructor and led by the instructor. Step 3, application. Now this is for the students. Step 2 was for me. Step 3 is for them, the application phase. They're going to take what I just taught them, and now they're going to go do it. So today's going to be forcible entry. Step 2 was I'm going to go and I'm going to show them step by step how to use the Halligan to force an inward swinging door, right? And I might do it a couple times. Step 3, I'm going to hand them the Halligan. They're going to take it. They're going to go force the same door. And they're going to do it multiple times. For adults, we have to do things multiple times for it to stick. Here's a big thing, though. They need to do it until they do it correctly. Students in my station will not leave my station until they can force an inward swinging door correctly. What we do not want to happen is for them to perform that task wrong and then leave. Because now in their brain, their format to do it is wrong. So when they go to perform this task, they're going to do it wrong. You have to stay in this application phase until they do it right. Now, if my 2 hours of training opportunity is up, then we stop right there. We'll come back to it on another day. But allow multiple reps. Step 4, evaluation. Again, formal, informal. Most of the time, this is informal, right? A lot of times, this is me just talking with them. Hey, how do you feel? Show me you can do this. What are the ads? What is the pick? Or, hey, maybe it's a written test. Hey, here's 10 questions. Can you just answer them real quick? It can be formal, informal, but we need to ensure that the information we gave them, they've retained in some type of evaluation form. Again, very simple is just maybe asking some questions, maybe very formal of a written test that's going to be in their personnel file. So an important thing at the evaluation, at the very end of the training, you as instructors need to maintain your professionalism and seek feedback from your students to you. All right. I do this every day that I train, mostly at the academy, but I do with my guys, is what did you think about today's training? How could I make it better? And what did you like? What didn't you like? How can I make it better? And what would you like to see next? Right? You are now the student. Let the people you were teaching tell you, hey, this went great, but this didn't go great. Or I was confused when you said this. Or, hey, we did forcible entry, but can we talk about moving hose interior now? Yeah, that'll be our next training. It keeps that professionalism going and it builds that that trust and that buy-in from your students to you. So, all right, it's 5:40 a.m. for me, but let's move quick. All right, learning theory. We're gonna kind of not skip over this, but we're gonna talk briefly. All right, Benjamin Bloom, 1956. He said that there was 3 learning domains. So don't worry about the affective side. We're not going to talk about it. That's kind of more of leadership type stuff. But cognitive skills and psychomotor skills. Pretty much anything we teach, we can split up into those 2. Cognitive skills are the thinking-based problems, right? That's how to do a size up. Talking about incident priorities, talking about how to do a risk evaluation. Those are the types of topics where we're going to sit down at the kitchen table and we're going to talk about it. Maybe there's some scenarios, but they're typically not physical scenarios. There might be, you show me a picture and I do a size up or a risk evaluation or something like that. Those are cognitive skills because we're using our brain and not our hands. Psychomotor skills, on the hand, is we're using our hands to do a skill. It's a physical skill. So, how to break a window, how to charge a hose line, how to don and doff PPE. Those are physical skills. So we just have to figure out which one they're going to go in so we can kind of tailor our stuff. Examples of each domain, cognitive. So things we can use during cognitive: lecture, demonstrations, scenarios, group discussions. Big fan of group discussions. Role play and case study. Big fan of case study. So yeah, a group discussion is kind of like, hey guys, we have this new building over here. Can we talk about how we're going to fight a fire in there? Boom, easy cognitive group discussion. Yeah, looks like there's here's how we can do this. And that's something easy you can do on any day after any call. So case study, find where something went wrong, talk about it. Psychomotor, step-by-step process, scenario, group scenario, individual scenario. So Group scenario is kind of like a battalion drill. We have multiple rigs there. We're all going to focus on this one problem. We're going to do it like, real world scenario. Individual scenario, that's more of a, hey, there's a victim there, you need to go get him. So me as an individual, I'm going to go get him and bring him in. Bloom's taxonomy. Oops. I'm not going to spend too much time. Just understand that there are different levels of understanding. There's basic, like remembering. Like I can remember that the forks are on one end of a Halligan tool. Or I can remember that a 1 3/4 line flows 150 GPMs. Then I can understand. how my nozzles and the pump and the hose make 150 gallons. I can apply it. I can apply where I need that 150 gallons. What type of structures, what type of fire, analyze. I can start to analyze that. I have 150 gallons through this hand line, but I can analyze it's not making a difference. I need a different line. So there's different levels for both cognitive and psychomotor. I'm pretty sure this lecture is going to be up in the AFM resources. Just go back and take a look. What we want is this create and naturalization. Those are our main focuses, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of repetitions, a lot of experiences. Edgar Dale, 1969. This is big. So as students, we remember 10% of what we read. We remember 20% of what we hear. We remember 30% of what we see. We remember 50% of what we see and hear. We remember 70% of what we say. If we remember 90% of what we say while we're doing, right? So there's two big things there, right? 50% of what we see and hear. That step 2, right? That presentation, that's me doing as I'm saying. So today I'm going to put my adze inside the rabbet. I'm going to elevate my tool away from the pick. I'm going to create a gap. I'm going to save my gap with my axe. I'm going to put my forks in. I'm going to lever in. I'm saying as I do it, because then the student is seeing and hearing me go through the steps. I've already hit them 50%. They're going to remember 50% of that. That's a good percentage. But now during that application phase, right, I'm going to give them the tool. They're going to say while they're doing. That is a requirement of our fire academy, is as they are performing a task, they have to say what they're doing because they're going to remember 90% of that, right? And that should be all training, right? Even the company-based training that I do with my 2 guys, we say what we're doing every single time. I'm stepping on the sideboard, clamping hose, putting hose onto my shoulder, securing hose, walking away. So, big things. If we just read something, it's only 10%. It's not a lot. I'm a very slow reader anyways. So Thorndike, he's got a lot of stuff. Let me take a look real quick. Fitzposner, we're going to probably skip those 2. So Thorndike, big fan of Thorndike, mainly because he's got a pretty cool name. But he has laws of learning. There's a lot of them. Here's only 6 because I think they're the most important. Law of readiness, right? Like I said earlier, an adult student cannot learn until they're physically and mentally ready to learn. That's your job as the instructor. Get that hook in them, right? Motivate them to learn. They want to learn. Get that hook in them. Law of exercise. Pretty much what it's saying is the more you exercise something, the better you're going to retain that skill. The more time we pull a hose line, when it comes to do it, the better we're going to be at doing it. It makes sense. We cannot expect someone to be good at a skill if they've only performed it 2 to 3 times. We cannot expect them to be good at that skill. So, law of effect, pretty much what this is saying is that there's an emotional response. Law of effect is if the student had a positive outcome at the end of the training, their brain is going to retain it better because of how synapses are built, right? So if at the end of a training, you go up to someone and say, hey, dude, great job. You nailed it. Heck yeah. That was some firefighter stuff right there. Good job. They're going to return the information that you gave them. They will actually retain it better because you gave them an attaboy because of how synapses are built and dopamine and all that stuff. But law of primacy. This one kills me because it's so weird. The first time we learn something, It is the most powerful. If I learn how to pull a hand line over here, it's the first time I learned it. But then I go 3 years and someone tries to teach me a new way of pulling hose. This is going to be harder to retain than this was. This is why the Fire Academy is so important. It's the first time you're learning something, and it has to be the right way. There's a saying out there, it's like first learn, always learn. First time you learn something, that's how you're always going to remember it. So make sure you got to teach it the right way the first time. Law of recency. The more recent you've trained something, the better they're going to be able to perform it in the real world. So something that we talk about is we have a deck gun on top of our rig. Most people in our organization probably haven't trained on the deck gun in multiple years. When we go to a structure fire, it's obvious because they have no clue how to use the deck gun because they haven't done it in a while. So if a student or a crew member hasn't done a skill in a long time, you cannot expect them to be good at that skill. You need to cover all of your bases every time that your training plan, your annual training plan should cover all of the stuff, not just one thing. So, law of intensity, this is just meaning that the more a student is stimulated, the harder it's going to stick. So like in the Army, I initially learned how to teach in the Army. The Army had 2 ways of teaching you: constant, repetitive motion, meaning reps, and blunt force trauma, meaning that there's going to be the skill, it's going to save your life, and we're going to pound you with it, and we're going to make it so intense that you will never forget it. Does that make sense? That's part of the reason why we make fire academies so intense. We're trying to stimulate the brain as much as we can, start building those synapses so they can learn better. There's other reasons, and we shouldn't always yell in the fire academy. I'm not saying we should be, drill instructors in the fire academy. We shouldn't be. There's supposed to be certain ways you use that. But Fitz-Posner, we're not going to talk about this too much. Just understand that there's a crawl, walk, run. You need to do things progressively, right? I can't go in and advance a hose line up a stairwell if I don't know what a hose line is in the first place. You got to start from the bottom and build up. Recognition, pride, decision making. We're not going to talk about this too much. This is just talking about how our brain processes information. So under stress and in those high risk, low time type of situations, what they figured out is our brain actually isn't making a decision. What our brain is doing is it sees a situation, it tries to match that situation to one we've had in the past, and then it just applies what we did in that situation to this new situation. And then our brain makes that, it overlays that pattern. So it's called recognition prime decision making, because you're recognizing a pattern and you're making a decision based off of that. We're not going to go deep into it. Just understand that this is my opinion, we should never go to an incident, see it, and go, I've never seen that before. If we do that, we failed as instructors and as fire company officers or members, because we didn't train good enough. We didn't train hard enough. We should be training for as many scenarios as we can. So we should never see something the first time in a real emergency. So, all right, let's get into some good stuff. Common fire company drills. One second, I'm going to use this opportunity to look at the chat.
Looks like we're good so far, Jeff.
Awesome. Thank you. There we go. How do I make you go away now? There we go. Nope. All right. Common company drills. I kind of split up just into a couple. These aren't, formal. These are just some things of me yesterday sitting at home going, man, how do I split this kind of up? So these are kind of what we use in at my station. So some common company drills, first in drills, meaning we're the first company there. We're the first group of guys there. What do we do, right? These are those red underlined tasks that we need to do off memory immediately for success, right? And that goes for, excuse me, residential fires, commercial fires, technical rescues, hazmats, vehicle accidents, EMS calls, whatever incident that you're going to respond to, having those first couple steps memorized, rehearsed, and naturalized in our brain, so that when we get there, we go, all right, boom, we got this call going. We show up to a house fire, boom, I know what I need to do immediately. I need to give a radio size up. I need to take command. I need to do a 360, a risk evaluation. My guys need to get a hose line down, get the door open, get masked up, and get ready to make an interior attack. Boom. That's what we're going to train on. Because after that, I can start thinking more clearly. Those are my reflexes. And once that's done, I can take a second, take a deep breath, lower my heart rate, take a look around, go, okay, now I can cognitively start making decisions. So another category, firefighter self-rescue and rapid intervention crew training. These are, we're in an emergency and I need to do things immediately, right? Especially firefighter emergencies and rescues, your heart rate's going to be up, which means your brain's not going to be working right, which means your hands aren't going to be working right because you've lost fine motor skills. And you don't know what to do because this happens maybe once in a career. You got to be able to get that ball rolling, start doing things immediately so that that snowball effect starts and our brain can start calming down. We start making better decisions. So like SCBA malfunctions, it should be trained, right? I can't suck in air. One hand goes to my bypass, the other one goes to my bottle. Or a rope bail out of a window, right? Things are getting weird. I'm going to anchor my rope, toss my rope, hold my hand, go out the window, slide down the rope. Those should be naturalized. Ladder bail, hose bail, firefighter down, how to broadcast a mayday should all be muscle memory naturalized in our brain because they're immediate red line items. So, firefighter hurt, we call it incident within an incident. It's a new title for the same thing as one of us got hurt. How do we deal with it? Like, how do we format this incident with a bigger incident? So, finding a downed firefighter. Like I talked about earlier, right? Training with your guys, with the guys that you work with, right? I work with Dave and Eric, and we've trained on finding a downed firefighter, and we've trained our roles. The first one to find them is doing this. The second one to get there is doing this. The third one to get there is doing this. Or if I have a rope, I'm doing this. If you have a howler gun, you're doing. We know what we're doing, and at a minimum, we know what task we want to complete when we find that downed firefighter. Our little plan, it might be different than the engine company down the street. Might be different for them. That's okay. We need to have a plan for us. If there's not a plan overall in department policy. Search and rescue. Known victim, right? We show up, someone's like, there's a victim in that window. Red line. We need to get in there. We have to do certain things off muscle memory that are naturalized and get it going. And then we can start making decisions, right? Unknown victim. Show up, there's no one around. I don't know, there's a victim in there. Now we need to do these things. Victim removal. We train well on finding a victim and moving that victim around, but we train poorly on getting them out of windows or outdoors. And once they're outdoors, what do we do with them? So doing those naturalization processes of like, here's a window. I know how to get this victim up out the window, or we got them outside. Now what do we do with them? Well, now we're going to switch into medical, and here's are certain things we can do with that. So those are great second due drills. So I'm Engine 80, our neighbor's Engine 81. If they call us up like, hey, we're doing first in company drills. Awesome. Hey, we're going to be there too. We're going to do some second due drills. Let us know if we're in the way. So they might be pulling a hose line and forcing the door. We're going to come right behind them in training, pretend there's a victim and bring the victim out. So those are great opportunities. Training on fire attack, right? During fire attack, right? Our heart rate's up, our brain is cloudy, our fine muscles aren't working. So having muscle memory on how to advance a line, how to flow water, how to ventilate a window or a door, how to move hose up a stairwell, down a stairwell, over objects. All those things we should be doing before we get to the actual fire. Like I said before, our goal is to not arrive to a situation that we've never seen before. We should already have an idea on how to fix this. Training can also be other things, right? Those low risk, high time maintenance. Hey, how do we maintain a fire engine? How do we work on an engine? How do we change the air filter on the fire engine? How do I fix the head of my axe from falling off the handle? Right? How do I fix the chainsaw? Or how do I just maintain it? Fill it with fuel, fill it with oil, check the air filter, turn it on and off every morning. How do I do that? You know, public service calls. How do I get a cat out of the tree? So simple things like that should be trained as well. Again, medical. I'm sure most of you aren't necessarily responsible for medical events in your areas, but probably encounter them, whether because of the incident or just because you want to help. So how to do a medical and trauma assessment, how to treat trauma victims, how to do medical procedures like splinting, bleeding control, airway management. Those are all types of trainings we should be doing as well. So, boom. All right. So that is kind of that. Man, look at that. 5:59. Now's kind of that time, if it's okay with Mike, like I want to hear from you guys. Like, what questions do you have? What did I speak really fast? You know, I woke up at 4 this morning to do this, so I've had like 8 cups of coffee. Like, what did I go too fast? What did I go too slow? What did I not topic? And I want to hear from you guys on what training you guys are doing. You know, because there's a lot of people here. There's 70 people here. What someone is doing in, you know, Kenya could relate to someone in Saudi Arabia. So let's hear from you guys.
You guys can go ahead and unmute yourselves if you've got a question or comment. Well done. Lots of good information there, Jeff.
Thank you.
Some stuff to even take back, like we were talking before training. Take some of these topics with me. So really good stuff here. I want to definitely make sure we get the opportunity to hear from everybody. Let's wrap up the formal part of our training here and give folks a chance to think about what they might want to ask. So I'll wrap things up by thanking everybody for coming, taking the time, using their bundles to get here for the training. Big thanks to Jeff, twice in the last month, coming here training with us. Much appreciated, and getting up so early on the West Coast over there is great. Thank you so much for that, Jeff. We've got plenty of seats here available in our training, so I hope if there's anybody you know out there that would benefit from our training, you know, please invite them to come. That you can use the same registration link that you guys registered with at our website, www.africafiremission.org. So please go there, check that out, check all the free resources. I've already posted this couple requests for the notes. They're already posted in that folder I placed in the chat, so you can go find them there. And hope to see everybody next week.